when are you at your very best? And I realized I was at my very best when I've got a microphone and the stakes are there really high that you've got to deliver something. So, for instance, at the Rugby Sevens in the old days, or any gig, wherever it is, you've got a microphone, you've got an audience, your job is to get the sponsors happy, get the audience enjoying themselves, get the content across to people. If you're an MC, get the other speakers, who are usually a bit rubbish, to be exciting enough for the audience, or get the audience back up again afterwards, and then deliver at the end of the day. Everyone's got to walk away saying, that's amazing, what a great event. Even if you know you've seen and experienced better, they've got to get the best out of that event.
Hey, my name is Lisa Hugo, and I'm obsessed with helping other people find and develop their voices so they can go out and take on the world, be seen as an authority, expert, and speak their truth with utmost confidence because they know that what they have to share will connect with their audience and make a difference. I studied performing arts and spent 20 years of my career traveling the world as a professional singer-songwriter. I teach you the secrets to speak up and be heard, overcome your fears, to build your speaking skills, and learn how you can use your skills to make a change both in your own life and the lives of others. This is your one-stop shop for all things confident speaking. This is Impact Through Voice. Welcome to Impact Through Voice. I'm your host, Lisa Hugo, and today we are very fortunate to have a wonderful master speaker, Dave Crane. He's not just a speaker, but he's also an MC, he's a commentator, he's an author, and he's a coach to other aspiring speakers. Please welcome Dave Crane.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here. We've not seen each other for ages.
I know.
It's crazy, isn't it? All flies past, but you don't look any different. And I've just turned into Santa Claus, literally. Gone very grey in the time since we last connected.
No, great to have you with us. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Pleasure.
Great.
Really good.
So our focus is on impact, making an impact through voice. So I think you're such a perfect guest to have on our podcast today. And so why don't you start? I've given you an introduction, but you start by sharing in your own words. What is it that you do?
How long do we have? My expertise is really about getting what's going on in your head out to people so they can then interact with you. So that would usually be driven in the business community through selling. So whatever you think and whatever it is that you do in your business, you need to communicate with an audience that are interested in the stuff that you have to sell, but they're interested in it because that's their target service or product and so on. So what I really do is I help people to be positioned as thought leaders by working out what their signature message is to the world. So who you are, what you do, and what that really means and has an impact. If you get that right, you catch on to the Wi-Fi code of your audience, and then you can create messaging and content that makes people go, that's the person I'm looking for. And it's not easy to find because we spend most of our lives kind of like reflecting on who we are as a direct result of experiences and what people think of us. It takes a long time to be able to step back and say, yeah, but who does that leave me as? And so for many of the people I'm working with, I have to undo their imposter syndrome and their beliefs that they're not as good as they believe they are, or that their job description that's on their business card is the only thing that they are in the world. And what I find fascinating about what I do, which is I run a thought leader accelerator called the Industry Icon Program, is anybody who's over 50 is having to go through a second chapter reinvention. So typically, you stay in a job until it's time to retire, and then you've got like another, 10, 15 years, hopefully, of living around, sitting in the garden, doing the roses, and then deciding what that should be. But what's happening in the nature of the industry, and it's almost every industry, is as soon as you reach 50, it becomes too expensive for most organizations. And so what they do is, because the medical is too expensive, and you want to have flights for your family to go wherever you're going to go, they're now starting to push people out. And that's even at the highest level. GMs are being pushed out, head chefs, wherever level you're at, they're just putting in younger people who are far less expensive to keep. And so with that, you need to reinvent yourself. And I would suggest that this is going to affect 1 to 2 billion people across the world who may or may not even know it yet. And as you're going into your second chapter in life, what they don't seem to realize is you're actually a big hitter already because you've done 20 to 30 years of a job or a series of skills to accrue to a point where you're actually really good at doing it. So rather than looking for employment again, as you've always done, start considering yourself as a consultant or as an expert. So all that stuff comes together. Now, it's one thing to have all that, it's another thing to be able to use it. And the best way to have that impact is to understand how to communicate with people so they then want to buy from you and work with you. And the first part of that communication is inside your own head. So the words that you say to yourself and the way that you consider yourself and the way that you map yourself to the outside world, once you've got that worked out, then you amplify it for your target audience, and that's how you create the second chapter and the ongoing story of your legacy.
Okay. We'll come back to this because I think this is a really interesting topic, especially now with AI coming on board, and you talk about people over 50 who have losing their positions and having to reinvent themselves. But I think it's going to happen to a lot more people in the workplace as AI starts to take over and jobs become redundant, and there's going to be more and more people looking to reinvent themselves or find something new. Let's go back though. I want to just go right back to, how did this start for you? Because you're talking, I think, a bit about your own personal experience that you've had to reinvent yourself, but you've gone through many chapters of your life. I'd like to hear a little bit. Okay, we haven't got all day, but let's at least give us some insight into how did you get into using your voice to make your mark?
Interesting. Well, one of the things I had to realize is when you create your signature message, if you understand what your relationship is to the outside world, you also realize that you're carrying a core wound. And that core wound is something that you probably spent your entire life avoiding, but it's actually what's driven you so much. And when I realized what mine is, and I don't just say it lightly to say, let me just pour my heart out. When you think about the way that movies are put together and your main characters that you fall in love with, they all have to carry a core wound. So take Superman. What's his core wound? Lost his parents. He's an orphan on a planet he'll never be able to return to. So everything he does as the most powerful person on the planet is all based around the fact that, is he going to fit in better or is he going to stand out worse because of who he is? And it doesn't matter whether you choose, say, The Sopranos, Tony Soprano as a main character in one of the biggest TV shows of all time. He was bullied by his mum. So when he became this mafia boss running prostitutes and drugs and all the other murders, you're thinking, he's done bad stuff, but is that going to fix that issue with that core wound that he's carrying around for his entire life with his mum? So for me, it was growing up as a mixed race kid in white areas in the northeast of England and Scotland previously before that, trying to fit in. And it took a long time, and it actually took the pandemic, amazingly, for me to realize I'm never going to be able to fit in, so just be Dave Crane. But all that time, I was pushing myself to see what I needed to do to be recognized so I could just relax in some kind of comfort zone that would make it easy for me. And the easiest way to do it is to be able to communicate. One of the reasons that communication was so important is because I mentioned Wi-Fi code a couple of times. If you're the only kid that stands out and you can't fit in, you have to do two things. You either have to make people laugh or you have to be able to fight them really well. So I was never a fighter. I was always somebody who just worked out how to make people laugh. And at the same time, you're wondering, are they really my friends? Or is it somebody that I've got to keep an eye on all the way through? These are maybe discussions or conversations that most people don't have to go through, or they've kind of been through at some point in their life, but then they felt comfortable and they never had to after that. For me, it's been an ongoing thing, which changed a lot when I came to Dubai, I've got to admit. But then you realize, how do I communicate with these people? What side of me is going to work? Do I become larger than life, or do I become really funny and witty? Do I become a psychologist who works out how to get the relationships to be really strong? Or do I just dominate from the front of the room, be the jack of all trades and the class clown, and have everybody want to hang around with me, or at least not want to take me down because they know I'm very witty and very funny? And it was a kind of combination. My entire career, if you take that as a template, it fits in with Dave ticking the boxes of that core wound all the way through. So what does that manifest itself to be? I was a child entertainer. I was actually, I won the equivalent of Britain's Got Talent when I lived in Scotland. So imagine Scotland's Got Talent. When I was 11 years old, I came second in that. But in those days, they didn't have the same TV coverage and all the rest of it. So I did that at the age of 11. And then I went on to do various shows. Then my dad, and I didn't realize it until my mum told me a couple of months ago, that my dad had actually said, I don't want him to be on the stage anymore. And it was because of the fact that he was just so worried about the industry. It was so cutthroat and backstabbing and everything. And he didn't want me to have to carry my weight in that. And so I didn't realize that I'd driven my entire career on my own from there. My parents were always supportive, but they'd kind of taken a step back. And I'd done it because it was inside my system. I had to perform. I had to create. As soon as I took my step down and tried to fit in, then it just didn't work. I can't be invisible because I can still be seen. So you might as well go out there and do stuff. And it's really strange because then you got a yin and yang of being an introvert and extrovert. And this is probably the same for you because you've got an entertainment background. You know, when you're not working on stage with a microphone, you'd rather just chill out because you don't want to switch it on all the time.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, when you switch it off, you can become invisible. And that's what the pandemic did. Because I found, wow, this is amazing. I don't have to go out and fake it and be out there all the time. But then you become too comfortable being invisible. And I've had to really reinvent myself and force myself to go to meetups and meetings and connect and join groups that I'm not even interested in joining just to reconnect with people. So my entire radio career, and even winning Blind Date, winning the biggest TV show at the time in the UK, reality TV show, and then leaving the BBC that was at the time to come to Dubai is all part about trying to find myself that core wound. And it's repeated itself. But I'm very comfortable in my own skin. And I realize that now the position I'm in is really about helping other people to be able to find themselves. Because I'm a mentor now more than a star.
Yeah, so you've got a very similar but very different background to me. As you said, I've come from a performing background as well. And when you say you won a talent show, I won Pot of Gold in Australia. Same thing. They didn't have the coverage like they do now for it to be all over social media.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, probably. But also, you know, similar story, you know, I was going out there wanting to perform. My parents were also quite reserved and concerned about the industry and what could happen. Have a backup career. You need something else. Yeah. So interesting that there's a lot of similarities there, and then we end up.
But did you go and
coaching
do
as well.
law and waste years on a career you had no interest in?
Is that what you did?
Yeah, I did.
No, I did not. I did go straight into performing around the world
Excellent.
as a singer, and it's only, you know, in more recent years that I've pivoted more into the speaking arena and helping other people in that area.
And you're excellent at doing it, so it's perfect.
Thank you. So let's tap into that sense of imposter syndrome. And I think you've written a book on that.
I've written a book on becoming a thought leader. It's called Thought Leaders Playbook, and a large chunk of it, I mean, it's not just me. In a survey, about 92% of people have imposter syndrome to some degree.
Me too.
Which is that fear, that little voice in your head that says you're no good, that was there probably to protect you from when you're a kid, is actually holding you back. When somebody says, don't do that, you make a fool of yourself, or put that glass down, you'll break it. When you're older, that stops you stepping up to go for a job interview or even talking to the person you find really attractive because that voice says they're going to make you look stupid if they're not interested. And so you end up being an underachiever throughout your entire life. And what that does is it means that you never, ever get to the point where you say, I've done all right. Because that voice says you're not allowed to say it, even if you have.
It's a lot about comparing yourself to others too, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. I think it's a way that society is set up. You think about it, especially in the speaking world. From school, we're told to shut up, sit down, and pay attention. And as soon as you put your hand up to say something, the teacher, and bless, shouldn't be horrible about teachers, but their job was to just get it over into your head, and then you get your exams, and then you're not their problem anymore. So that nurturing you as a speaker is not normally encouraged in the classroom. And so if you say the wrong thing, everyone laughs at you, probably teacher included. So the best thing you can do is sit down and be quiet. That's a really hard way to find yourself when your entire career as a child is based on fitting in and not standing out and being the same as everybody and going through this machinery that pops out somebody who'll be an ideal banker or an ideal whatever job it is they're going for. You're going to have imposter syndrome because nobody is the same. And what they didn't realize is the things that you're really good at that aren't academic is probably what's going to drive you to where you need to be in the future anyway. But typically, for instance, the playground would drive your relationship with people, and then the school classroom would drive your academics. But they're about 50% equal importance for where you need to go. But your ability to do well on the playground had no bearing on the kind of person that they perceived you to be. But when you look at who was successful from school, so many successful people from school dropped out early.
Yeah.
And went and started a car washing business, and now they're a real estate, expert or whatever it would be. And so I think school got it wrong, and that's where we first learn about who we should be, but the wrong way. And so many of us are playing catch up ever since then.
Yeah, it's interesting. My kids even say today that, the school system, look at most of the entrepreneurs, they dropped out of school, they didn't finish their grades, they didn't go to university, and they're the ones who are the most hugely successful. And I say, okay, you can take that, but let's focus on what you're good at and invest into yourself and get yourself to, have that grounding, and then you can decide what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely.
But one thing I can say is, talking about the school system, my kids have been in a British curriculum and now they've moved into an IB curriculum. Now, this is a bit off topic, but what I have noticed in this curriculum is they are nurturing a lot more the independent thought leadership, the ability to be able to get up, to present. They're encouraged to give presentations and practice their skills, and it's definitely a change,
forwards.
yes, for the better. And I think all schools need to look more in that direction,
especially nowadays when
talent.
Kids are distanced from each other because of gadgets and devices and locations, and so that ability to go the extra mile to be relevant is something you need to learn. Otherwise, you can't be in the background, because then everyone's in the background, and kids, especially in the teenage stage, find it really hard to sit in a room with somebody who they don't know and make conversations. When I was that age 8 million years ago, you go out to play, you'd pick up a football, you go missing, you make friends in the park, that you'd go around their house and nobody cared, and you'd come home when you're hungry, or you'd be fed around somebody else's house. Yes. That's the way it was. I wouldn't even dream of sending my daughter out to deal with that. Right now, she's with her friends, and I'm just checking she's okay, and let me know, and you got your mobile phone, and we can track her. That's a really weird world to be in.
When you came to the UAE, what was the first thing that you were doing?
I left the UK because I was working for the BBC as a news journalist. I'd won Blind Date, this TV show, to prove how good I was as an entertainer. The BBC used it as an excuse to sack me and get rid of me because the guy who was the boss was an idiot. And so I applied for a number of TV shows, didn't get the ones I wanted, realised living in the Northeast I should have gone down to live in London, moved down to London, didn't like it, came to Dubai because I'd just run out of options. I was burning a hole in my soul because I was desperate to be able to step up to my next level, and there was no level, and there's nobody around who understood who I was and what I was going through.
And how long ago was that? When did you come to Dubai?
30 years, almost this year, 30 years.
Because it's an interesting choice to come to Dubai, especially back then. It wasn't really on the map.
It wasn't on the map at all. The girlfriend who had family her best friend's family were living in Dubai, and so she'd been to visit her. And she said, you should go to Dubai as a place to see. I said, well, it's going to be oppressive. It's going to be difficult to live in a place like this. I'm not sure if that's right for me. And then a job interview came up, and they offered me a place in Dubai running a sports bar. As an entertainer, so I took it, came out here for a 4-month contract, and 30 years later, I'm still here. And the choice, and so having not being able to get a proper radio job, despite working for 3 years as a freelancer, and when I say a proper radio job, I just wanted to belong to a company. I could freelance forever, but I wanted to feel in my 20s I'd found home. And somebody could take me under their wing and so on. I didn't get that. But when I came to Dubai, within a short amount of time, a new radio station had started up. I was hanging around with the guys that were DJing there. They offered me a job, and within 2 years, I was station manager of a radio station in Paradise. And I remember an old colleague came over to Dubai, and I caught up with her, and she said, so what are you doing now? Expecting me to be, I don't know, working in a restaurant? And I said, I'm running a radio station now. And she couldn't believe it. She's like, really? I was like, yeah, because what Dubai does, and it's brilliant now and it was brilliant years ago, is it says, oh, you can do that, can you? Go on then, and we'll see. And market forces will take you down if you're an idiot. But if you can do it, and you've got the drive to be able to make it happen, then good luck to you, because the world will notice it and you'll do really well.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that's kept me here. And it's really in the DNA of a place. And everybody you meet who's a survivor, who's been here for a long period of time, I always see people who work in Dubai, who live in Dubai, as like the kids who used to hand their homework in at school. Those ones that knew the game. And realize that if you put your work in, you do your homework, then you'll do better because you're checking what you're doing. And I think that's a survival point that works really, really well. And this place is the epitome of it.
Absolutely. I've been here 17 years as well.
Same.
Yeah.
Even a pandemic in our industries didn't stop us staying here as long as we wanted to, not that we had anywhere else to go, and be successful.
Yeah. I came for 3 years, and the 3 years kept being extended. Now we don't see any other option for us. We love it here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The pandemic, let's tap into that, because for both of us, that was a pivotal moment for us to have to find a different way of working. Tell us a bit about your experience.
Wow. For the pandemic, I was doing big events around the world. I was teaching people to speak on stages. I had a very successful business, being me, but hosting events because you and I have got like it's like famous in Vegas level of being well known. Nobody outside of Dubai knows, but those in Dubai, there you go. So you're kind of well known. So that was working really well for me for 25 years, because I'd been on radio, been on TV, magazines, newspapers. So I was kind of like a local celebrity. But then with immediate effects, when the lockdown came in, I couldn't speak anywhere. I didn't have an audience anywhere. I couldn't get any clients to teach how to speak anywhere. And my wife was an award-winning wedding photographer. So within like one day, we had no income doing what we were doing before for about 2 years. And so we had to reinvent big time. And what we had to do was just say, well, what can we keep doing until we find something that's going to come in? It's like if you're stuck in the desert, you choose a direction and you keep going as far as you can until you find water. And that's basically what we did. So I went online and I streamed a show. I had a friend who was a speaker trainer based in Texas, and we created the toilet paper diaries.
I remember that, yeah.
So we had, at its peak, it was having about 1,500 people watching us live every day, because nobody knew what was going on. We did about 50 days straight for an hour every day, and then we broke it down, did it for about another year and a half after. And we just realized that let's stay relevant until we know what we get to do next. Because we didn't have any online business that we could turn around and say, it doesn't matter, the money's coming in. We had school fees to pay, rent to pay, car fees. I mean, Dubai did an amazing job of making sure that everything ran smoothly. Yeah. So we didn't have to worry about being in lockdown, but you still need to pay for your electricity and your Wi-Fi and everything. So I realized that all the time that I'd been experienced in Dubai, I'd got myself to be very good as a kind of celebrity speaker type, well-known motivational speaker, and that meant that I knew how to grow my brand around it. But when there's no speaking, what if I flip it round and I grow my brand without the speaking? If I take the branding bit, can I turn around to find other people who haven't got a brand and help them to grow it? Mm-hmm. So when I realized that was a really important thing, but I didn't want to show people how to become Kardashians and influencers that, look at me, I'm wonderful, that's my dinner, let me show you how I cooked it. None of that. I wanted to work with people who were industry experts, who were very good at what they do. They had an income coming in, obviously, because I've got to earn from these people, but they were invisible. And so with that, through doing the stuff I did online and going live across Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube at the same time, I found that people would contact me and say, Dave, that stuff you're doing, can you show me how to do it? And it was dribs and drabs from different parts of the world, and I got some experts in this industry and that industry, and I showed them how to write books, create podcasts, to get their head over imposter syndrome, to use social media effectively, and I built up this community worldwide of people who then could become really effective in their own industry, and they all went on to make 6 or 7 figures as a direct result of that new branding that came from their increased positioning. And then I realized that the big challenge I had was not those clients, which are great and I love them and I still work with them and I do all the time, but it's I didn't have a community of friends. After 30 years, all my friends had left Dubai. And because I've got my family, my wife, my daughter, my dogs, I was kind of happy with that, plus my gigs. I go home, I'd just be with my family. I go to gigs, I meet lots of people, that's it. But then I realized I didn't have anybody I could tell my truth to because it was difficult. I didn't know I was suffering from depression and anxiety, and I was working 24/7, going online, always active to see where the next bill's going to be able to be paid from. And what I did was a thing called not burn out, burn in. So imagine driving your car in the desert, you're stuck in the sand, and you're revving the wheels to try and catch hold, and nothing's catching. So I was going full on, still doing stuff. And after about 2 years, I was emptied. I was still doing it and emptied. And my wife said to me, you need to take a day off. Take a Saturday off. No, what if something comes in on a Saturday? But eventually I did it, and it saved my life, to be honest with you, because it made me, at first I would fight it, I'd still do stuff on a Saturday. Then I realized on a Saturday I'm doing nothing. I'm either watching football, or I'm reading, or I'm watching a movie, drinking coffee. I'm going to do something that's got no work involved. And that still happens to this day now. And it's so important. And I know that what I went through was massive. And a lot of people went through the same thing and are still suffering from it, because we went through the first 3 months of Let's Help Each Other. I mean, after that, those who had a job coming in, especially in the tech and developing industries, IT, we're going, whoo, never had it so good. We've got more clients than ever. Let's just bring in more people. But if you're in a people industry, it was brutal, and it stayed brutal until maybe recently it's changed. I mean, your biggest pop stars on the planet in the 80s, what could they do? Normally they're doing a tour of singing their old favourite songs, but if you're not doing that, cancelled. What are you doing? And so
they were singing from their living rooms.
For what? Who's going to pay to see you on Zoom?
No, they weren't, yeah.
So it was a really difficult time for many people, and actors even worse, because they have resting periods in between their big shows or their big opportunity, where they're maybe doing a waiting job or whatever it would be. All that was decimated. So the entertainment industry changed dramatically during that time. And I think that anybody who's smart doesn't put their eggs in the same basket again, but they use it to help brand and they grow, but they also realize that it could come again in some way, shape or form. So you've got to have multi-levels of relating to, of paying your bills, and also having multiple businesses that you can run at the same time, which falls back into what we said at the beginning about being over 50 and having a side hustle at least alongside your normal job to be able to communicate and be more effective.
Yeah, I fully agree. And it was around that time, I remember we saw each other at an Ajahi event, which was in March of 2020. You were down the front, I was up the back, I dragged my husband along to it. And it was that event that saved me through the pandemic, because I signed up for a mentor in the UK who taught me how to do webinar funnels and how to use YouTube ads and grab the attention of people on YouTube, lead them into a webinar. They spend an hour with me learning, getting to know me, getting the feeling, oh, I know Lisa, I think she could help me. And from that, we could lead them into either buying, at the beginning I had just an online self-guided course with a bit of group coaching, which I do once a week with people on groups. And then we've shifted that now into higher, all different tiers of that program, and that's what we do now mostly, which meant that I could go global. I wasn't restricted to this region. We didn't even have Zoom, remember, before the pandemic.
It was blocked.
So we were really isolated here, and the only option was to meet with people face to face or have those in-person sessions. And when that's gone, you know, I remember closing the doors to my studio where I think the last time we met was in there, and saying, I don't know when I'll be back and what am I going to do now? Yeah. So pivoting, finding other ways, but never saying, well, I have to give up. No, you've got to find another direction. Keep going.
Yeah, it's adaptation, isn't it? That's reinvention. That's really important. I think that's the key to the future in every industry anyway, because when you mentioned about AI and the difference it makes to communicators, all it does is it saves you a lot of donkey work.
Yes.
I don't have to worry about scripting. I don't know if you've done this, but what I did, one of the first things I created was I got into ChatGPT, paid for the paid version, and I created an avatar of me called Max. And so I got it to read some of my articles and give me a breakdown of what my sense of humor is. I cross-referenced it with my CV so it could work out who this person was. And we created a thing called Dave Crane Style. And so now it can write about 80% correct of anything I want it to write based on Dave Crane's style, which meant I could speed up a lot of things and make them a lot more effective without me having to have a good day or a bad day. I could just put it in, have a look through, and then my job was to edit what it did. It was never perfect, but to go through. But it would be a lot smarter when I wanted to put a strategy together and say, right, I want to turn this into a book. What would the chapters be? It goes bum, 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 bum. And you go, no, but it's a great start. And so AI is really effective for communicators because I think the knock-on effect of where we're going to be is it's throwing us back into our humanity and our ability to have relationships with people that truly connect, which were kind of taken for granted and put to one side because technology meant that your ability to code was more important than your ability to talk to people. But when AI can code better than anything, then you've got to go back to talking to people. So your empathy, your relationship, the way that you carry yourself, the stories you tell are so really important because that's what people connect to, because now they've just got that ability to say, who do I want to play with when I'm actually connected to the rest of the world?
If somebody comes to you, they say, Dave, I want you to help me. I want to build my brand. I want to be a good speaker on stage. I want to have my own keynote. Where do you start?
I start off by asking them what it is they want and why they want it, because often they don't actually want what they think they want. To be a full-on author, podcaster, speaker, traveling the world, staying in 5-star hotels, going on business class all the time, that's great. But is that what you really want? Or do you just want to be better noticed at work? Do you want to stay in your job and just fast track towards CEO? Or do you want to run a side hustle at the side of it? Do you want to know that your job is safe forever because you've built up a brand that people love, but also the fact that they can't sack you because they know there's nobody that can fill that gap? What is it you want from your voice? And so I work out what their end result is, and then I reverse engineer how to get from where they are to here. And it's very rare that somebody needs to have all these different elements. They just need to have a few things that relate to the audience that they want to reach. Because it's like planting fishing nets everywhere. It's your omni-channel. Somebody somewhere should be able to find that thing and then find the way back to you and then do business with you. And so when I work with people, I find out what their signature message to the world is. I mentioned earlier about the core wound. Who are you and what is it that you would do? What is it that if you say you had a meme, what would people say that is? For me, it took a while to work it out, but it's jump and grow wings on the way down. I jump and grow wings on the way down. I've always done that. Didn't realize it until I mean, you can only read life backwards and you look at your history and say, what's a theme that's always worked? And what do my audience and my avatars need me to say and do? And what will they get from that? And when I say to people, I help people to jump and grow wings on the way down by going from invisible to visible by growing their brand and teach them to speak. So then they have a very successful business that looks after them. That's my elevator pitch in like 10, 15 seconds. And anybody who gets it goes, I need some of that. And anybody who doesn't get it goes, no, that's not what I'm after. So it's finding that part, and everyone's is different.
Yes. So then you're only attracting the people that you want to work with and you're repelling the ones that you don't.
Absolutely. But you're not wasting anybody's time or money getting to that point where you have to create a business with them.
That's right.
So what I do then with people is I show them how to find who they are and then find who their audience is and then find a way of increasing the trust and the credibility that their audience has in them. So when they Google and a number of names come up, they need to turn around and say, that's the one I want. That's what my main work is with everybody.
Got it.
Because it's ultimately, what do people buy from you? I mean, when people come to you and say, Lisa, I want to work with you. What are you selling to them?
What am I selling to them?
What are you selling?
I'm selling them confidence, the ability to be seen as an authority, to be respected, to feel that they can go out and do what they want to do. But it comes down to similar to what you do. What is it that you want? What is your main goal from working with me? And then we work out, well, is this the right thing for you in the first place? And how are we going to get you to that?
But if it's to put into one word, just the same as we're here in this incredible podcast studio, and we've gone from our old location to here, and we know it's going to be great because of the way that they had their old place, or when you go and you work with a lawyer, or you work with anybody, what you sell is certainty. The certainty isn't that, I'll show you how to do my job. It's give it to me, I can do it, I'll just take care of it. And that's what you sell. If I came to you to learn my voice and all the stuff that you have available, once I've worked out who you are, before I contact you, I know that you will deliver. And that's the same with me. Your job is to build that certainty. I don't need my plumber to tell me how he fixed the sink. I just need him to fix the sink because I've said, can you do it? Yeah, no problem. How much is it? Done. I don't want him to explain it, just say it's done. Alas, that's it. Thank you so much. And so it's certainty you've got to build as much as possible in every industry so people know that you're the one to go to.
Yep. And that's how I do this with my trainings. People get a glimpse of me. They get to spend time with me, first of all, and then just they get that certainty through that by other going through my content, my blogs, my online content, my podcasts. Yeah,
your guests.
Exactly. That okay, she knows what she's talking about. She'll get me my results. And then they come to me knocking on the door.
And what that does is it shifts the challenge from how much is it going to be to the fact that I know the result's going to be perfect. What's it going to take to get you to work with me? Because what everyone else fights a battle of is price, especially in Dubai. It's a place that's built out of bartering and marketplaces and everything. So
discount though.
The formula for being paid. The formula for being paid is two factors. First of all, the effect of a job you do and how cheaply somebody can replace you. Mm-hmm. So that's what everyone looks at. Now, if you have a really good brand and you're excellent at what you do and you focus it right down to delivering one or two things better than anybody else in the market, you're irreplaceable. Mm-hmm. So you can charge more or less what you want because they know that you will deliver because of a certainty, and they know that they want you because they look at other people who might be able to do it, maybe, but that's what you do. I want you.
Your value is the result you get somebody. It's what you can, what the outcome is, what's it worth to them. And then they'll decide, is it worth it?
Absolutely. And sometimes they don't know, and sometimes they need a little bit more pushing. And sometimes they say, well, it's a bit expensive. Can I get my brother to have a look at the price and see if we can get it cheaper elsewhere? In which case I say, good luck. Yeah. And often I give my clients to other people because I don't want that kind of client. I want a client who we can create a long-term great relationship with that lasts for years. And that doesn't happen with trying to beat you down on price, because what part of my service do you want me to not deliver? Oh, I want everything? Well, that's what the value is. I will make you more money by working with me. Let's have the trust and credibility built in, and then let's move forward.
So the client has come to you, you've already ascertained exactly what areas they want to work in and what do they want to get out of it. You've ascertained that. Let's say it's somebody who really aspires to be a thought leader, to be invited onto stages and to be able to speak and share their expertise. Where do you start then after you've gone through this?
Fascinating. See, one of the things that I've got as a superpower, probably my superpower, is the ability to get the Wi-Fi code of the people that I'm meeting. So you can profile people very quickly. And if you take it all the way back to being a mixed race kid growing up with strangers who you don't fit in, you learn very quickly whether somebody is going to be your friend or not be your friend. And I found that amplifying that makes me so good with audiences. I can walk out at an event that's got like 50,000 people out with the Dubai Rugby Sevens for 20 years and work them to do anything I tell them to do because I work out the Wi-Fi code and how to get that to happen. So when I meet people, I can cross-reference their LinkedIn page straight away, even before I've met them, to see who it is I'm working with and what they need to do and what their industry is crying out for and what it is that they believe are the strengths that they have that their industry may or may not understand. So when I've got their LinkedIn profile, most people's are terrible, and I've got the person saying to me, can I get them to fill in a questionnaire so I can work out what the level is that they want to actually have, cross-reference them, and it points in a certain direction. It's then a question of how much do you want to invest in yourself, and I'm not talking about money here, in your energy, your drive, your self-belief to get that result. If it's a willing commitment you're willing to make, then these are the steps. I've got a 6-step roadmap that they have to go through to be able to get to that point. So it starts off with the awareness that maybe I don't fit in with where I am right now. I want more. Then it's aspiration. You're looking around at somebody else saying, oh, I'd like to be like that. Not in their industry, but in my industry, then I want to do that. Then it's a drive. You start driving. You build a car, a vehicle. You say, I'll do a bit of social media and I'll talk a little bit and I'll write something and I'll say hello to people, I'll connect. So you start to build this vehicle and you start driving. But then you realize you're going in the wrong direction because I'm driving this, I should be over there, not here. So then you've got to rearrange and head in a different direction. And then as you're going in this different direction and you've got your stuff, you're building up, you're speaking, you're building a gathering of followings, fans, you're starting to create content, you go, actually, the people I want to target, they don't need all this other stuff. They really want me to do one or two things, so I'm going to focus on that. So you narrow it right down, and then you get to the sixth point. The sixth point is ownership. That's when you're an industry icon. That's when your name is a verb. So people say, we need somebody who's going to do that. Who can we get? Dave Crane. Now, what does Dave Crane mean? Well, it means you're going to throw in somebody who's just going to deliver a gig. He'll work it out. He'll get it all. What kind of gig have we got? We've got a room full of accountants. Right, is it fun? No, but don't say anything to anybody. Do a Dave Crane on them. What's he going to do? He's going to make them have fun. Is it going to be amazing fun? No, but it's going to be more fun than they've ever had before. And so that's it. So you work out what you are, and then your name comes up again and again as a verb. And that's the key to everybody who wants to be a thought leader. When you talk about Elon Musk, which many people do, what does Elon Musk suggest to you? It suggests a guy who's a complete genius when it comes to tech, but not the best person when it comes to humanity. Mm-hmm. And it's that balance. Would you trust him to create something? 100%. Would you want to hang around with him? Maybe not so much, depending on who you are and what your beliefs are. So it's quite clear, front and center, what your brand should be. Most people don't have that brand. They don't even know internally who they are.
True. And I think most people, especially if you're employed in the workforce, you don't even consider yourself as needing a brand. But I think everybody needs a brand. It's who you are. It's how you represent yourself.
Because a company doesn't want you to have a brand. If you have a brand, your head sticks up above the trenches, and then you get noticed more. And then the odds are you'll turn around and say, "This is rubbish. I shouldn't be doing this anymore." They don't want that. Yes, you can have a brand in that seat. And when I tell you, you can maybe elevate, we'll let you go for a job interview in 6 to 12 months, and we'll let you know if you're good enough to go to the next level. Okay, why didn't I get the job? Because we decided you weren't ready. Oh, okay, I'll wait for another 12 months. That's how it's all built. That's how the old system was. And it still is. I mean, let's face it, most people are employed. They've got a job that pays their bills. And that's great. No issue with that. School was created to get you to that point. But what if something comes along like a pandemic? And that job is not guaranteed, or AI. And the great thing about AI, which makes you laugh a lot, having trained as a lawyer, is right now there's apps coming onto the market that can do law fast, for free.
Write contracts. And
Absolutely. And so the next stage, because it used to be that if you're a knowledge worker, if you've spent 7 years training to be a doctor, 7 years trying to be a lawyer or an accountant, you get paid at that level because nobody else can take it off you. But what if my phone can do the same as you in a very short amount of time? What do I need you to do? I need you to create a relationship with me. I need you to be able to advise me about the fastest and best way to choose that stuff that's been given to me by the phone. But I don't need your knowledge. I can get that from here. So many people who used to be on an ivory tower thinking I'm fine have to now learn people skills, communication, positioning, branding. So yeah, you can lay off a couple of people from your office, but you still need to be the face of it. Otherwise, why would they go with you? And so I find it a fascinating mix. Many people don't know their industry is dead yet, but they're going to find out. And they should really be asking those questions, because they don't necessarily have to lose where they are, but they have to find what their humanity, what their voice is, what the communication skills are, who their audience is, and what their audience wants to hear from them. So what you're doing with the podcast and I do with my podcast, and the relationship with books and the content we put out into the world is really important, because even if you don't need it yet, you will need it at some point.
I think we've come full circle. That's so good. We started off with AI and 50s, and now coming back to exactly what we started the conversation with. And it's been so valuable, Dave. It's been great having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, your experience, your expertise.
Thank you. Can I do one last thing before we
Absolutely.
finish? You asked me about imposter syndrome,
Yes.
and I want to give you a way that anybody who's watching your podcast will get this from this and be able to come back and learn more from more podcasts by learning how to get over imposter syndrome. And I had to reinvent myself to do this. So, as a life coach or business coach, first of all, when I realized I had imposter syndrome, it hit me most when I was getting clients, potential clients or events and stuff coming through. And because I'd been in a challenging state for 2 years during the pandemic, I hadn't done gigs for such a long time. I was worried about, I don't want to lose the money from the gig, but at the same time, I know I can deliver. Where do I go with this? And I realized imposter syndrome was a challenge. I don't think I'm good enough. So I thought, okay, so therefore, let's lean into which version of me can do that. And I realized that you've got your birth certificate version of you, which is whatever's on your birth certificate. Mine says David Maxwell Crane. And Dave Crane was born out of that. So throughout my entire life and experiences, my social media version of me, Dave Crane, is everything I've been through. And this is a version I want to tell the world. This is me. Is it the real me? Not really. It's the one that's always smiling and telling jokes and all that. Not the one that's necessarily the same at home or with your close friends, but it's one that you want to have customer facing and people facing. And I realized that version of me wasn't strong enough to take on this change in the industry, because I was really worried about, are these jobs going to come through? Am I going to mess it up by dealing with it the way that I dealt with it before? And I thought, well, you're a life coach, Dave, and one of the things that you know is to ask better questions. You're trained as a stage hypnotist, and that's another thing we haven't even talked about.
Yeah, we haven't even tapped into that
communication
today.
skills at their very best. And I thought, well, what do you need to do then? I thought, well, when are you at your very best? And I realized I was at my very best when I've got a microphone and the stakes are there really high that you've got to deliver something. So, for instance, at the Rugby Sevens in the old days, or any gig, wherever it is, you've got a microphone, you've got an audience, your job is to get the sponsors happy, get the audience enjoying themselves, get the content across to people. If you're an MC, get the other speakers, who are usually a bit rubbish, to be exciting enough for the audience, or get the audience back up again afterwards, and then deliver at the end of the day. Everyone's got to walk away saying, that's amazing, what a great event. Even if you know you've seen and experienced better, they've got to get the best out of that event. And I realized that version of me is really powerful at making decisions. That version of me in real time can say yes, no, and he's always right. Whereas the Dave Crane social media version of me, the second iteration of me, wasn't confident enough to take on clients and work because of the pandemic. So then I decided, right, okay, that version of me that's got a microphone, supposing I could tap into him. Let's call him Max. So Max became the superhero version of me. Max is super powerful, give him a microphone, is in control, doesn't care. If there's a challenge to him, he'll turn around and say yes or no very quickly and walk away and not care. Because that's what you do when you've got a microphone. As you know, you make decisions based on, you calculate them, and sometimes it works badly, but very rare. You get better as you learn. So I thought, okay, I've got these clients who are not coming back to me. What if I ask Max what we should do about that client? So I decided to tap into Max. And I know it sounds mad. It's still me. I'm not stupid. But I thought, well, Max, okay, let's ask you, what should I do with that client? And Max said, right, give them 24 hours to say yes or no. Say you've got 24 hours to come back to me as a yes or no. If not, then I'm going to, the offer is off the table. I thought, you can't do that, because I need the money. What if they're just busy? What if they've got other focus? So I thought, I'll go with it, because I didn't want to silence Max, because I knew that was tapping into something. So I said, okay, I'll give him 24 hours. And what it did was it freed up idiots that were wasting my time, but it also meant the right people turned around and said, yeah, okay, let's do that. And you get an answer straight away. I thought, okay, let's see what else I can do. And so I started getting Max to drive my business. So when it meant connecting with people, I had massive imposter syndrome. I don't want to say, hi, I'm Dave, how are you, in case I get rejected. I just let Max do it. Max goes, hi, how are you? Okay, don't talk to me, I'm not bothered, and so on. So the only time I couldn't be Max was at home with my family. I wouldn't let him use that power to upset their relationships, my wife, my close friends, but everything else was full on. So now Max deals with everything. Max is probably talking to you right now, because it's become so close,
concept.
you know?
Yeah, but I get where you're coming from. I mean, this is your way of describing basically the two sides that we have within us. We've got the strong version, and we've got the one that questions the imposter syndrome, the one that doesn't believe in themselves enough. And so it's balancing out and allowing each side to come through at the right time. You're calling yours Max.
So here's yours. When you get a microphone and you're on stage and you're singing and a room is going, oh my goodness, this is the best we've ever had. What's she called?
I had never really thought about it.
Try a nickname. Did you have a nickname at school that you could feel comfortable giving her?
Cricket.
Is cricket a strong name for you?
Because it was jumpy and I was bouncy and I was full of life and energy, like a cricket springing.
Right, so if you embodied cricket, for one's codename cricket, you can change it.
You can change it,
exactly. You got cricket to make some decisions for you that were difficult for you to deal with as Lisa. Would you come up with a better and stronger result?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to give it a try. For sure. I'm sure if you're thinking that way. Yes.
Exactly.
You're putting me on the spot.
Therefore, cricket or whatever name you want to have, most people watching this, listen to this, have got a nickname from school, and certainly when they're doing their job, whether they're a carpenter and they say, leave it with me and they just do the carpentry work, or they're typing up a project and they go in a zone and 3 hours later it's 2 a.m. and they've done it and they just know it's brilliant because they're brilliant at doing that. That version of them is the third iteration that can get over imposter syndrome. So you've got your birth certificate you've got your social media version of you, then you've got your superhero version of you. Throw that superhero version of you at all the challenges you have in life, and suddenly the sky's the limit, and that's the one that takes on the world.
That's brilliant. I'm going to go away and try that. I think I'll find a different name though.
If not, we'll stick with cricket. But anything, I'd love to know that name when you have it. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, sure. I'll let you know. Well, Dave, it's been amazing having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find you if they want to work with you, they want to know more, they want to get your books, learn from you,
Thank you.
book you for a gig?
The easiest way to find me is to go to speakonstage.com. That's my website, speakonstage.com. All my contact details and everything are there. I'm broadcasting all the time on LinkedIn and on YouTube and so on. So I've got my stuff out there, but go to speakonstage.com or wherever and just connect with me and just ask me questions. I've got a WhatsApp group that I created, a community. I've got a community called the Game Changers, which is a membership group where I help people to raise their game. I've got a free WhatsApp group, which has got over 400 people in now, because I wanted to get anybody who was stuck and thinking, who's going to help me? I don't know who's going to help me. And I'm not ready to invest in myself because I don't believe in myself yet. But can somebody just help me so I can? So I created this group and it's gone from 50 to 400 in about 5-6 months. And what I do is a 5-day challenge where I teach them a new skill. And it could be getting over imposter syndrome. It could be writing a book. It could be launching a podcast. It could be anything. I do it for 5 days for free. And I ask them all these different questions as exercises. They submit their questions or they submit their exercises and I mark them and then I mute the group because otherwise then people start spamming everybody. And I do that and it's been growing really, really well. So I would suggest that connect with me, see where I am, get into my WhatsApp group, and that's the fastest way for you to be able to learn what it is that we do. And at some point you may want to hire my services, or you may just stay in there and just grow who you are and what you do. One client turned around to me, and he's one of my game changers, and he had a side hustle that was making $2,000 a month, and he was in a job where he was a CEO. He was doing well, but it was shackled. It was really difficult, and I pushed him, and I gave him the tools and techniques to be able to reinvent himself. His business now is making over $30,000 a month, and that 2,000 turned into 30,000. He's his own man. It's growing at an incredible rate. And he said on one of my podcasts, that's 100% down to you pushing me to be able to become a thought leader and become an industry icon. So I know it works, and everybody deserves that.
Awesome. Go connect with Dave and join his group. You're going to get so much value from it. Great to have you. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure and great to see you as always.
Same. Congratulations, you've just finished another episode of Impact Through Voice. You're well on your way to making a positive impact in the world with your voice. If you want more, head on over to lisahugo.com/podcast for show notes and all the links that we mentioned in this episode. Until next time.